the economic woes, the Egyptians have a few tricks up their sleeves. First is that their buildings are free. Well, like half of them. But that's still insane. Houses, upgrade buildings, and resource collection points are all on the house. This lets me store up money to build a big army. To help even more, I have a god power. Okay, I need to talk about something real quick. I don't want to get demonetized on this video. I spent an insane amount of time on it, and if I slip up on something and the algorithm decides to hide the video, I'm in a horrible place. But that's going to make some of the Egyptian parts awkward. If you look to the bottom center of the screen, there's a little flag icon. If you look to the right of that icon, you can see who my patron deity is. I'm not going to say that word. It has gained additional meanings over the last 20 years, and talking about worshipping or the glory of them might trigger YouTube's automatic moderation systems. This is because back in the day, they tried to use YouTube as a platform to put recruitment videos up, and YouTube went ballistic on that. As they should, but I don't know if that automatic moderation is still in effect or if I will get caught in the crossfire. So I'm not going to take my chances. If I say anything about my patron goddess in this campaign, this is who I am referring to. To help my economy even further, my patron goddess has the prosperity power, which gives me 50 seconds of almost double mining rate. This combos with the fact that the few Egyptian buildings that aren't free cost gold instead of wood. Because of this, wood is a significantly less important resource than the other factions, which is actually really cool. While ancient Egypt had significantly more trees than it does today, it has always lacked really big ones for those large construction projects. This is an awesome way to represent the relative differences that the actual societies had. For this first Egyptian mission, we only have access to the barracks units, but they work very differently here than their Greek counterparts. For infantry, cavalry, and archers, Greek had a paired system. 2 units where one acted as a generalist and the other as a counter. For example, with archers, the Toxotes had a fairly strong matchup against everything with a 50% bonus against infantry, while the Peltast did far less damage to every target, however it did 4 times damage to other archers. All Egyptian barracks units are counter units, which bring things to an extreme. The Axeman is an infantry that does 4 times to other infantry, the Spearman 4 times to cavalry, and the Slinger 4 times to archers. They're all either brutally effective or useless. There's no in between. But they're also cheap. For this mission, I end up massing Spearmen and Axemen, assuming that archers would be rare. After I get a good army, I take all of my workers and put them onto the excavation site, split my force into 2 pieces, and intercept the siege weapons the enemy is sending at me. While the attacks do ramp up in difficulty near the end, it is nothing to be worried about, and everything finishes fairly unceremoniously. Amonra has unearthed the Sword of Horus, who defeated Set in the past. So obviously, Gargarensis' minion Kemsit wants it. As part of his plan, he's captured the temple to Osiris. The temple contains a guardian who will awaken if given the sword, so we get moving. I feel bad for the guy who has to carry the pointy end. Quickly, we come upon enslaved laborers who are being forced to mine gold for Kemset. We unemploy the guards and free the miners, now to escort them back home. The road contains mummies, a top-tier Egyptian myth unit who can not only instantly kill human forces, but raises them as undead minions. They're tough to stop, and I lose a villager as well as some soldiers. Fortunately, I have 4 heroes right now, with Amonra joining our forces, so we can fight back. Then, they use the snake's power on me. It summons snakes and they're seriously unimpressive. They keep doing this in no-build missions, and it's never actually any impact at all, and I kinda wish they would just stop. Upon reaching the town, the citizens thank me for liberating them from a life of mining gold, and they pledge to fight for our cause. So I send them back to the gold mines. Listen, Kemsit might not be a good dude, but he knows how to build an army. How do I know? Because a giant army of death, doom, and demise is in the bottom left of the map. I have to reach the Guardian before this force cleaves through all the towns. Despite being mission 2 of the Egyptian campaign, we actually have a ton of tools available. Tier 3 can be reached, and now I can make myth units as well. We're also following Ra, who gives us the rain power, which temporarily triples our farming speed. The ability is super bugged in the base game. It doesn't say this anywhere, but if a farm is not near a town center, it gives 0 bonus food production, which is awesome when its introductory mission has the farms all off onto the side. But that's not it for the bugs. For whatever reason, rain also increases the wood harvesting rate of the user by 50% without saying so. The whole thing is a mess. The Titans expansion did fix the proximity thing, but the lumber bug remains to this day. One of the coolest things in Age of Mythology is how favor production is completely different for every faction. While the Greek have to devote villagers at temples to worship, the Egyptians build monuments. There are 5 monuments in total, each costing progressively more food and gold to produce, as well as taking a while to build. Once they're done, it's passive favor forever, which is really nice. And it would be even more favor if I remembered to deposit this relic that Arcantos is holding. It gives me more faith regeneration, and I just sat here like a doofus holding it for half of the mission while being 2 feet away from the temple. To defeat Kemzit, I decide to spend my favor on the Scarab, a living siege weapon who honestly I think are kinda cute. Just me? Okay. Scarabs are big, bulky, and obliterate buildings, and they're not half bad against soldiers either. To supplement, I get a pack of slingers to flesh out my already existing forces. With Kemzit taking the second of 3 villages, I feel the need to get the move on. Can I take a moment to talk about how my army looks here? I love having this wall of scarabs in front of the rest of my forces. It's one of my favorite things about this game, where the addition of the myth units and the humans to give them a sense of scale makes these awesome armies that you just can't see anywhere else. As I crash into Set's defenses, he rushes to intercept. And my goodness, this guy has a ton of units. Set's whole shtick is that he has evil animals. Hippos, giraffes, crocs, and even rhinos. He supports them with an armada of chariot archers. I manage to breach the front gates, take down a tower, and dent his army, but I lose a maxed out force. All of my heroes drop in enemy territory. To be honest, I was kind of skimping a bit. The armory contains upgrades for human units, attack and armor, but they're pretty expensive, so I tend to get the attack upgrades and hope things will work out. After my scarabs died, the rest of my army went down very quick. But this time, things didn't work out, so I'm gonna not skimp. I get my armor upgrades, try to quickly form up a force of axemen, spearmen, and slingers to hit Set before he can remake everything that he lost, and the second wave goes significantly better. Despite my scarabs getting stuck in the back, his chariot force is not nearly replenished enough, and he doesn't have his corrupted animal frontline. We rescue the heroes, destroy the stronghold, bust the gate, and bring the sword to the Guardian. But the mission isn't over. Now I get the Guardian, and it's time to smash Kemzit's giant army. It's supposed to be cool. I remember thinking as a kid, it was supposed to be cool, and then being wholly underwhelmed. The Guardian is effectively immortal, kills everything in one hit, and does damage in an area, but it's slow and has no abilities, which makes the final fight him attacking stuff and it falling over. It's really clunky. By no means is it horrible, but the Guardian probably needs something like triggers slinging off god powers at the enemy, or anything really. It's just a bit flat. So what is Kemzit doing? Why is he conquering temples of Osiris if Set killed him? Well, mythology is weird. So Osiris was killed, but not killed. Instead, split into parts. Reunify the parts, and we get the O-Man back. But if any are destroyed, then Osiris is gone. The game never directly explains why we want Osiris back. I don't really know much about him, but Amonra wants him back, and that's enough for me. The mission is a tug of war. We're ambushed, all of our heroes are knocked out, and the cart starts moving down the ravine towards the enemy base. Whoever is next to the cart controls it. Whoever brings the cart to their base wins. This is cool. Tug-of-war missions are fun, and we get right into the action. We start with a ton of money, which is just neat. But this mission is super incomplete. I send Chiron to the top right because I spotted a relic. This relic doesn't do anything at all. It just has no text. When I put it into the temple, it does nothing. They just forgot. Let's talk a moment about major gods. I've called them patron deities as well because I played too much Dungeons & Dragons in high school, but they're the same thing. You start with a god worshipped. I really wish the game did a better job at explaining when and why a god is your major god. At the beginning, it was Poseidon, which was obvious. Right as the war for Troy started, it shifts to Zeus, which makes sense. The Greek forces would be for Zeus, and then it sort of obscures the fact that Zeus is the one helping out Arcantos specifically later. For the first mission of Egypt, we get our patron goddess, and then in mission 2, we get Ra, which is actually mentioned when they talk about the rain spell, which I appreciate. And then here, I'm Set. You know, the villain? The guy who killed Osiris? The one who wants to get his body parts to destroy him? What? This is never mentioned again, has zero plot significance, and never comes up again. The only explanation I can think of is that this mission was basically never tested, so nobody caught that the wrong major god was Set. Sorry, I won't stop. You've already missed like 20 of these. The mission is also laughably easy. You start with a full base, 1 billion of each resource in the bank, and just have to mash whatever units you want, and it will easily overwhelm anything the enemy sends, no matter the difficulty. I went for a force of Anubites, the cool jumping myth unit. I wanted to support Amonra, who also has a jumping attack, but the enemies keep walking past my skirmish force and not attacking them. A couple scripted ambushes happen, but they're all a joke, and I finished the mission in 7 minutes. This is by far the least polished mission in the entire game. I would really be interested to know what went on here. Most games generally have problems like this hidden towards the end, and we're smack dab in the middle here. How did this happen? If anybody has any info, please put it in the comments because I would love to know. After rescuing the Piece of Osiris, things snap back to normalcy, and the game starts to get good again. We move to the center of Osiris's kingdom, that I wish had a name, and we need to get our Piece of Osiris to Setna. I had no idea who Setna was, so I had to look it up. Apparently he is the son of Ramses II. His actual name is Khaimwaset. I don't know if they just expect you to know that, because I had no idea who Khaimwaset or Setna was. Anyway, Amonra then just kinda walks off mid-sentence, and a bunch of Kemset's men surround Ajax and Arcantos. Kemset then monologues at them for 3 seconds and sends them to jail. They don't pass go, nor do they collect $200. Amonra, now alone, prays to our patron goddess for aid, and our patron goddess responds with overnight shipping on a pile of myth units. This is one of the missions I remember the most as a kid. As we're in the holy city of Osiris, there aren't a ton of resources. There's a bit of lumber, a few farms, and some gold mines. What there are is an absolute ton of monuments. Normally, the Egyptians can only build one of each monument to generate favor, but Amonra can move to about 15 here, giving absurd favor income. In theory, this mission actually lets you build normal units and fight like a standard mission. But no, let's be honest here, this is the mission where you build mass myth units and everybody knows it. And we get a few new ones. The Scorpion Man is, The Mummy Returns came out while this game was in production, and you can tell that they were inspired by the film. And by that, I mean it kinda sucks. The Sphinx, on the other hand, are incredible units. They have solid bulk, can smash things hard, have an area of effect sand vortex attack, and are fast to boot. And then there's the, Petsuchos? Yeah, Petsuchos. These gold ornamented crocodiles fire laser beams from their head at an insanely long range. I was actually doing a bit of research on this part in order to make sure that I could pronounce Petsuchos correctly, and it turns out that Petsuchos aren't strictly mythological units. Instead, they were crocodiles that lived in the very real city named, get this, Crocodilopolis, which is just lovely. The ancient Egyptians would ordain these crocs with gold and worship them as offspring of Sobek, the crocodile god. In fact, Petsuchos means offspring of Sobek. And then I got thinking, why the heck does offspring of Sobek not have the sound Sobek in it? So I did a little bit more digging, and it turns out that Petsuchos is actually the ancient Greek translation, where Suchos is the poorly translated spelling of Sobek. So it shouldn't be Petsuchos, it should be Petsobek, the offspring of Sobek. So first of all, get it together, ensemble, and second of all, it's 4 AM and I thought that I made decaf while writing the script, but it was accidentally fully caffeinated coffee, and this has caused me to take an entirely pointless journey down this rabbit hole, and I do not apologize for it. You saw how long this video was going to be when you clicked on it, and there is no reasonable world where I'm going to properly respect your time here. Which is why I ask you the question. If Petsuchos or Petsobek are the offspring of Sobek the god, and Sobek is a crocodile, and these are also crocodiles, which god do you think should be worshipped in order to unlock them? Because if you answer Hathor, the cow goddess of dance, love, and joy, you are correct, but you are also cheating. These gods are so unrelated that they don't even appear on each other's Wikipedia pages. Why, ensemble? Why did you take a real-life crocodile that wears fancy jewelry and literally named after a deity and not include that deity into the game, give it to someone else, use a weird translation on the name, and put a laser beam on its head? The only reason I went down this rabbit hole is because I saw the name Sobek and recognized it from an H-Bomber Guy video. It's now been 2 hours and I haven't gotten anything productive done. What were we doing? Oh right, the mission. The mission is pretty cool. We have to get Amonra to a dock to sail to ancient Egyptian Alcatraz and rescue the boys. We can either head directly there, where we can fight through Kemset's elite guard, or we can strike the Citadel and draw the guards away. I go for the Citadel and get absolutely smoked. I end up dropping production of every myth unit besides Petsobek because they have long enough range to kill my enemies before they reach me. These white-clad units are priests. They're an Egyptian anti-myth unit that really would convince a smart person to stop building only myth units. But I've been Googling crocodiles for hours now and have lost all executive function, so I make a lot of laser heads until I can overpower their production and take down the Citadel, forcing the elite guards back. I could then walk over to the dock and continue the mission, but I'm still angry. So I keep pushing into the depths of the red base, kill all the stuff there, and then go after the elite guards. I didn't need to kill them, but I did need to get justice for my pet Sobek and the mistreatment by the hands of Ensemble. They needed this, I needed this. Finally, with every enemy dead, I bring a Monra to the dock, get a transport, and Ensemble! Why can't the crocodile swim? How did you mess this unit up so much? What did it ever do to you? Why are you like this? All they want to do is live with their buddies in Crocodilopolis. Stop doing them dirty. Anyway, Amonra says that she has to convince a nearby port to give her ships. We go over there, she literally says nothing to them, and the entire port town becomes our friends, including this giant turtle which can swim. See, Ensemble? See, the reptile that can swim? I take my fleet, grab the enemy's attention with Big Turt, and drop Amonra on the island. GG, I'm not making Crocs again because they deserve a happy retirement after all of this abuse. Before Amonra arrives, an imprisoned Arcantos gets the opportunity to speak to Gargarensis. The Cyclops wants to know, which god is giving Arcantos so much support that he's been able to accomplish the things that he has?
Lord Poseidon watches over all the people of Atlantis.
Lord Poseidon? You're more a fool than I expected. Let's see if he's watching over you now.
You may feel less like fighting after I pull off your head.
I will deal with you all in due time. We have more pressing matters to attend to at Osiris's pyramid.
When I first watched this, I thought that I was going to have to be critical about, oh, Gargarensis is telling everybody where he's going. Why do the villains always do that? And then I remembered that they're literally in the holy city of Osiris, and the biggest, most important thing here is the pyramid, so it's not like they're giving away any vital information. I can give this one a pass. As the mission starts, we break out of prison and a small fleet of transports, aeroships, and Big Turt come to rescue us. There's an allied base to the south that will aid us, so we make our way there. This mission is fantastic and one that I always enjoy. Unlike most missions, we get to see the layout of the entire map once we get a base. We have to retrieve our piece of Osiris and escape the city, and Kamos will repeatedly move the piece around the city over time. This city is enormous, taking up the entire eastern landmass of the map. But before we can do that, we have some other issues. We start on a smaller landmass and are sharing it with a base of Kamos. And to make matters worse, Kamos also has a pirate base that constantly sends naval raids against me. But if I can take down a lighthouse on the peninsula, we can stop the raids. To deal with all these problems, I have to build up fast. In order to do that, I use one of the defining mechanics of Egypt, the Pharaoh. Shortly after any game as Egypt starts, you spawn a Pharaoh for free. They're heroes, so they deal well with myth units, they have a nice healing ability, but their real strength comes from the Empower ability. The Pharaoh can empower one structure at a time, and the benefits are nutty. A building under construction finishes 74% faster, units and technologies build 30% faster, defensive structures attack faster, resource drop sites create money out of thin air, and monuments create favor 20% faster. The only downside is that you have one Pharaoh, so you can't do everything. The insane flexibility of this power means that a Pharaoh can allow skilled players to build and tech faster, get more resources, and hit crisper timings. The entire system is amazing and incredibly frustrating. But before I get into why, we need to talk about the mission more. The harbor near my starting location is full of fish. These are permanent food resources that can be harvested with fishing boats. All I need to do is protect them. I figure I can kill two birds with one stone here. Kamos' naval raids are dropping troops at my base. If I can get a defensive navy to protect my ships, I can also minimize his attacks. The entire thing goes well. For myth units, I worship Thoth, who gives me access to the Phoenix, one of the few flying creatures in the game. My plan is to use the Phoenix to assist the siege on the base, and if needed, they can move over to the ocean to assist my naval forces. I defend against enemy attacks, get a decent army, and push back the enemy base and lighthouse. While this is happening, let me address something that has probably been driving seasoned Age of Mythology players wild for the last bit. I've been using my Pharaoh to empower my town center to make workers faster. That doesn't work. And the game gives you no indication that that is the case. You would have to sit down with a stopwatch and time your villager production time to be sure. Age of Mythology is so good at giving a basic understanding of what things do. It's fantastic and intuitive in many different ways, but it always skimps on the details, which is to some extent fine. You don't want to overwhelm learning players with tons of numbers. I agree with that, but those numbers have to exist somewhere. All of those empower percentages that I listed earlier, I had to look up on the wiki. I literally learned that I was making this mistake while I was writing the script. It's great that we have the wiki available now, but man, does it suck to get halfway through a campaign and it turns out the tooltip that says builds units faster specifically excludes what I assume is the most common target for new players with no feedback. It obviously isn't a world-ending problem because I clear through Kamos's base and destroy his lighthouse fairly cleanly. We even get this little cutscene where ships crash on the rocks because the lighthouse is gone, which is cool. Now that the base on my island is gone and the top left base is unable to send attacks, all that remains is the right city fortress. There's only one logical path for me to take. I go to the top left and see if I can kill the pirate base. I cannot kill the pirate base. It crushes me, sinks my fleet, and kills my phoenix over the water, which is not healthy for firebirds. I decide maybe it's objective time. Remember as kids where people would add stuff to rock, paper, scissors like lasers or something and claim that their new thing would beat all the normal options? Naval combat in this game is like rock, paper, scissors, nuclear bomb. There are 3 types of core ships. Siege ships fire strong, slow volleys that are good against arrow ships fire faster and are good against hammer ships, and hammer ships are melee and counter siege ships. And then naval myth units literally blow them all out of the water. Big Turt, also known as the War Turtle, is an Egyptian naval myth unit. Unsurprisingly, he is very difficult to kill. I build 5 of them, lead my charge against the enemy harbor, and it goes great. Landing a sea raid is always a bit of a mess. To keep it properly reinforced takes a lot of micromanagement, constantly sending transport ships forward and backwards to bury units. Instead, I prefer to bring a vanguard force to secure a beachhead, and then workers to establish an infrastructure to keep the fight going. That's what I do here, and it works great. I mass infantry and catapults and punch a hole through the enemy defenses right before the Osiris piece is moved. Once secure, the only thing I have to do is move the piece to the front of the city, defeat the honestly pathetic ambush, and finish the mission. Having escaped from the city, our heroes finally get a reprieve, and the moment Arkantos hears that he has a moment, he crashes like a rock, and wakes up in a dream. Athena once again appears before Arkantos and gives him a bit of exposition. While Zeus is the king of gods now, there was a time before when he was not, when the Titan Kronos ruled and it was much worse for humans. And then Castor, Arkantos' son, pops up and Athena disappears, forcing us to walk a bit to get more exposition. We follow him to a temple, put a relic into the temple, 3 statues of Zeus charge their Tesla coils, and zap some Dream Cyclops. Then all of the heroes appear and fight some chimera, heroically slay them, and were rewarded with the next part of the story. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades fought the Titans, defeated them, and imprisoned them in Tartarus, sealed behind great adamantine doors, one of which has like 37 HP now, but that's not a problem. Poseidon is angry that Zeus got to be the cool god after the war and wants to let Kronos out so they can dethrone Zeus. But the doors to Tartarus can only be opened by mortal hands. Or mortal battering rams, I guess. Which is why Gargarensis is working for his pop to get his grandpa out. We're still in a dream, so now the game gives me an army to destroy a boulder, which is neat. After our epic struggle against the rock, we get transported to another map with some transports. We become red, our soldiers become Minotaur, and we carry on as if nothing has changed. So I float over to my base. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really enjoy dream stuff in media. I'm not gonna judge the game negatively for that, it's absolutely a personal preference, but it's not mine. The dream setting and storytelling does not change the mission's gameplay though, and in that respect, it's solid. As we unload our forces on the other side, we have our hero, a bunch of myth units, a Gargarensis, and a Kamos. So we're looking through the perspective of what would happen if Gargarensis won. Fair enough. Except our patron deity is Hades. What? Why? We were literally told 12 seconds ago that he was working with Poseidon. The entire idea of Hades equals evil is so misguidedly entrenched in this game that it's actively making the story confusing. It sort of just feels like they needed a mission where we played as Hades because there was absolutely no opportunity to do that in the past. One cool part of the mission is that there's just relics everywhere. There's like 40 of them on the map. It's actually excessive. And I think it's hilarious that the moment that I get to play as the big bad guy, I force him to do the manual labor of shuttling relics around. There are far too many of them to build an actual coherent strategy around, but they give a ton of economic benefits, which is great because as soon as I get set up, the enemy uses their 4th tier earthquake power and destroys my base. The objective is to destroy an enemy wonder in the top right side of the map. It's defended by a huge Greek base. We have a ton of money, relics, and start in the 4th age, so the game turbos us into the late game, which is a nice change of pace. A unique aspect of the Greek factions is that the major gods, Poseidon, Zeus, and Hades, each have a unique human unit available to them. Elite cavalry for Poseidon, infantrymen for Zeus, and archers for Hades. This is the only time I will get to play as Hades, so I opt to go for the Gastrophetes, a long-range crossbowman that actually existed. Using my myth units as a wall, I get a bunch of these archers in the back, but the enemy doesn't sit around for long. The AI is starting to get smarter. It's now using god powers preemptively to strategize. They use the bronze power to buff an attack wave's durability and send it at me. But I have Aphrodite's curse power available that can turn many human soldiers into pigs, completely invalidating the buff. This is the kind of stuff I love about this game. These immensely powerful gods thwarting each other and coming up with clever tactics using wild powers. I love it. Once my army is big enough, I approach the front gates and start my siege. Unfortunately for the enemy, I also have the earthquake power and level half the city in a single blast, crippling their ability to reproduce. They send a pretty impressive wave of defenders, but the area damage from my Chimera's flame breath roasts them and I push through to pressure the wonder. One thing I wanted to mention as the mission ends is the spirit of the storytelling here. I think a lot of people will look at, oh, you're being told what's going on by a goddess in a dream, as a negative thing. And honestly, I think if the goal were to win an Oscar or whatever, then I would probably agree. But this style of exposition actually fits the way that Greek myth worked. Deus Ex Machina is literally a term came up with because so many of their stories involve deities randomly showing up and saving the day. It is absolutely different from how we do things these days, and it isn't my first choice in storytelling, but I do respect Ensemble's decision to replicate the way that myths and plays were actually told in the day. As the dust settles on the ruined building, Athena tells us that this is the fate of Atlantis should Gargarensis win, and Zeus cannot directly interfere, or else it will start a war between the gods. So, good luck, Arcantos, it's on you, bud. The crew has one piece of Osiris, but 3 more remain. For the next 3 missions, we split up into groups to claim them simultaneously. First up is Amonra, sieging the piece kept by Kemzit at his island fortress. Fortunately for us, Kemzit's propensity to use unpaid interns strikes again. The mission design is somewhat the opposite of the last mission. There are 2 land masses. The biggest one is civilized by people who will join us when Amonra approaches them, creating a great sprawling base. Meanwhile, Kemzit has a much smaller island, but it's very well defended. As I scout the map with Amonra, I end up scared because the coastline is absolutely massive here. Ships could drop trolls anywhere. Trolls? Why did I write that in my script? Ships can drop Kemzit's forces basically anywhere, and that would be really tough to defend. To battle this, I use the priest's special ability, Obelisk. For a cheap 10 gold, it creates an obelisk. They can't attack, but they have vision in a really large area. I line the shores with them so I'll never be caught off guard. After rescuing everybody on the mainland and building a strong economy, I think about my assault on Kemzit. Actually, this is a complete lie. Going into this run, there were a few missions where I knew exactly how I wanted to do things. This and the next mission are 2 of them where I've had a strategy for years and finally have gotten the chance to play again and do them. For my strategy, I'll need the Leviathan, a naval myth unit that is both good at fighting and can transport up to 20 units at a time. First, I use it to transport a Monra and a villager over to an area I spotted with a few hidden relics. Once again, this genius mechanic gives little rewards for exploration. They give me a bonus to farming speed, infantry armor, hero damage to myth units, and siege weapon damage. Really nice. To get to Kemzit's island, I need my transports to get past a massive fleet patrolling around. Normally, it would take some serious naval warfare to make the trip properly, but I have a better idea. The siege tower is similar to the Greek Heliopolis. Its melee spike does huge damage to buildings and it can garrison up to 5 infantry to protect them during the advance. I'm going to abuse that second part for fun and profit. I make a large infantry army and a bunch of siege towers, and then I garrison my entire army into those siege towers, putting about 50 infantry into the 10 of them, which then I load into my Leviathan, who can carry 20 units. As a result, the Leviathan is only carrying 10 siege towers, but in reality, he's carrying about 60 units. This is one of the things that I love about Age of Mythology. The game is designed for fun and stupid stuff first and balance later. The game is totally fine with these bonkers strategies being part of it, and it's amazing. Because my fleet is a single unit, I can easily sneak past the armada and deploy my siege towers onto the island, who then deploy infantry to cover them. I stormed through Kemzit's base, and the poor lad never had any idea what hit him. With the Osiris piece secured, Amonra confronts Kemzit, and as she moves to strike the killing blow, Kemzit's rock swoops by and he grabs on it to fly away. The fact that he's backwards in this is so funny to me. I can't help but imagine that like 30 seconds after he makes his dramatic exit, he's just sitting there not able to see where he's going, being like, I have no idea where this is taking me. I really hope that there's land soon. My arms are numb and I have to pee. This is almost as bad as flying on United. Now that Amonra has done her job, Ensemble remembered that Chiron is actually a character and gave him a mission. A great tamarisk tree grows from a patch of fertile land, and in its trunk is the head of Osiris. Sorry, stop here a moment. See that on the right-hand side? It's a relic in the intro cutscene. I love that they put this here. Once again, it gives this nice incentive to get out and explore as soon as the mission starts. You know you have prizes awaiting, so it's worth it. What a great mechanic. As Chiron speaks to his men, soldiers approach. But they aren't hostile, or Egyptian. Nordseer and his men have arrived from Midgard. They're seeking the One-Eye who has rallied the giants to his cause. These Norsemen seek to stop the One-Eye and prevent Ragnarok. They join Chiron and we begin the mission by moving northeast and claim a base. I have a lot to talk about here. This mission has a series of brilliant yet subtle decisions in its construction, and I love it. The tree in the middle of the map must be harvested. It takes villagers 5,000 chops to take it down. So obviously, there'll be quite a few required, and even then, it will take a bit. To reach that goal, we have a small contingent of Norse soldiers to supplement our Egyptian faction. The map is split into two by a river. Our side of the river is open, desolate desert with resources few and far between. Normally, this is considered quite bad for map design. Large open areas with no terraining is generally seen as amateur, not something that exists much in full-fledged campaigns from established developers. But here, it's intentional. The Egyptians don't have light cavalry to scout large swaths of area, and they're not great at gathering resources from distant places. The Norse, on the other hand, are fantastic at both. I send a raiding cavalry to scout the area and find resources for the other Norse unit that I'm given, the ox cart. In order to construct resources away from a town hall, Egypt and Greece must construct granaries, mining camps, and the like. These are small hubs where resources can be returned to. They take time to build, only have specific resources that can be returned to them, and are immobile. The Norse, on the other hand, have the right idea. The ox cart can walk around, and any resource can be returned to it. This makes it ideal for harvesting in this barren wasteland. This is a really cool mission design. It does so many things at once, and it does them all well. First of all, it introduces the next faction, and we're heading towards the climax of the Egyptian campaign, so it's important to sow the seeds of the next conflict. Second, it teases the actual mechanics of the faction with gameplay and not just lip service. So many titles, be it games, TV, or films, will simply tell you about something and expect you to remember it when it comes up later. Showing and making you play with it is such a strong way to introduce it.